I had to put that in there. Hey, what's up, folks? It's the Methodical AAA. If you don't like me, frankly, I don't give a doo-doo. Anyway, it's been about a week since X-Men Days of Future Past has entered theaters, and everyone seems to love it. For those who don't know, let me just give you my general consensus of the X-Men films as a whole. X-Men 1, pretty good. X2, awesomeness incarnate. X-Men 3, yeah. X-Men Origins Wolverine. X-Men First Class. I've said this many times before. Everyone loves this film, but for me, I don't. If you're curious, then check out my video, see why, see if you can relate a little. And the Wolverine, pretty good. Now, was I hyped to see X-Men Days of Future Past? As said in my X-Men First Class video, I was only interested. Mostly because it was focusing on the past characters, the prequel characters. I wasn't really hyped, to say the least. And after watching the film, what do I think? I think it was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed X-Men Days of Future Past. I must admit, I have to give credit where credit is due. Bryan Singer, he came back with a vengeance. But of course, there are things that I did not like. Of course, there are problems in every movie, but if I see something wrong, I have to talk about it. I just have to. So this is my video explaining what I hated, what I liked, and what I loved about X-Men Days of Future Past. Okay? So, let's get started. To start off, let me just talk about what I hated. Unlike the video for X-Men First Class, this section isn't gonna be long, at least I hope not. Moving on, what I hated in X-Men Days of Future Past. Additional continuity errors. There are two continuity errors that I can think of off the top of my head. Let me just talk about the first continuity error. Number one, so where were the Sentinels? The Sentinels have been in production at the very least around 1973 in this film's universe, and yet no one even seems to mention them, not even in passing. This is the first time we actually hear about the Sentinels, which is really confusing because if humans are as afraid of mutants as I think they are, given how we see them respond to mutants in every single X-Men film, I assume they would have unleashed the Sentinels long ago. I'm talking at least before the first X-Men film. So, number two. So, all the X-Men films are in one universe. This film pretty much makes it official. Every single X-Men film has taken place in the same universe. That means Charles Xavier walking when he's Patrick Stewart is actually supposed to happen after Charles Xavier gets apparently crippled in Cuba. Normally that would be a bad thing, but given the events that happen in this film, it makes it okay. I'm gonna get to that later. But bottom line, those are the two things that I hate. The continuity errors. It's not nearly as bad as X-Men First Class. Moving on. Now for the things that I liked. The first thing I liked was there wasn't too much focus on action. Well, okay, yes, there was action, especially in the bad future. I'm gonna get to that. But yeah, there was mostly talking, but I never felt bored by the talking. It was something that I wanted to see. I wanted to see these characters develop, you know? Probably because X-Men First Class, let me just say this. X-Men First Class, I don't care what anyone says, X-Men First Class was meant to lead up into the first X-Men film. That's exactly what it was supposed to do. Think about it. Charles Xavier gets crippled, Mystique leaves Charles and goes with Magneto, and Charles opens up the Xavier Institute for gifted youngsters. That was exactly supposed to lead up into the first X-Men film. But the problem was, it just felt incomplete. You know what I mean? Characters' motivations weren't clear. And Charles Xavier was a piece of fucking shit in that movie. I hated him. I hated him. How the hell is this kid supposed to teach people when he's an asshole? I don't want to learn from an asshole. Bottom line, this film takes the time to let characters develop. Of course, there's action, but even the climax of the film that takes place in the 70s, it doesn't have an abundance of action. Of course there's action there, but at least for me, I cared about what the characters were talking about and what they were doing that necessarily wasn't action related. When I go into an X-Men film, I usually expect, you know, some sort of, you know, crazy action set pieces. There weren't really any set pieces, especially in the 1973 timeline. I really liked how they focused on the characters instead of action. Now, the second thing that I liked in this film, Quicksilver. Yes, everyone's talking about, oh, how they love Quicksilver. I didn't love him, but I did like him. I did like this character. I like how Quicksilver, he's pretty much a game breaker. Let's say you play a video game. Throughout the video game, you get a bunch of new gadgets, weapons, accessories, whatever. And then you beat the game, and then you have the opportunity to play the game again with all of those gadgets, well, weapons, accessories, and whatever. That's a game breaker. Quicksilver is a game breaker. This dude, you see, it's got, he shows that he can break the game whenever he wants, which is why they leave him behind. But it's just one thing that I just wonder what would happen. I know why the film left him behind, because the film would be over in 2 minutes. Literally. The film would be over in 2 minutes if Quicksilver, like, was on the team for the whole movie. Due to the fact that this film, you know, it deals with different timelines, I wonder what would have happened if there was a timeline where they kept Quicksilver in the film and he just went all game breaker status. I'm laughing just thinking about it. Like, yeah, Quicksilver, that scene was pretty awesome. I wish that they showed an alternate scene where Quicksilver was along for the whole ride. Oh, that would have been fucking awesome. But yeah, I like Quicksilver in the film. The third thing that I like in this film is the whole reason for going back in time in the first place. Now you might say, you know, behind the scenes, the whole reason for going back in time in the first place and changing history and all that is because Bryan Singer, he doesn't want anyone to mess up the continuity that he laid out. I can understand that, and I can also understand Bryan Singer's point of view because a bunch of people fucked up the continuity that he laid out. So I can understand why he would do that, but what I'm talking about is the reason that the film gives us. The film shows us the fucking horrible future, the bad future, where the Sentinels are just killing everyone, and the X-Men, at least what's left of them, are just barely escaping with their lives, but it's inevitable that they're gonna die, so they need to go back into the past and change whatever it was that led them to this state. I like that. I really like that. If you didn't know anything behind the scenes, it wouldn't be obvious to you. Alright, what I'm saying is, it would not be obvious to you that Bryan Singer wants to change the X-Men continuity back to what he wants. If you did not know the behind the scenes, if you did not know that Bryan Singer wanted to change the continuity back to what he wants, you would never know. You would never know. Because the future, it's just convincing. It's just, to me, it's just convincing. And yeah, that's what I liked in X-Men Days of Future Past. And now, here comes the big one. Here is what I loved in X-Men Days of Future. I never thought I would say that about an X-Men film in a long time. I never thought I would, but lo and behold, it's here. This is what I loved in X-Men Days of Future Past. The first thing that I loved, the bad future. Yeah, you might be thinking, but you just talked about that. No, I'm talking about, well, yeah, but okay, let me explain. What I liked was the reason why they went back in time. But the bad future itself is what I love, because it's so bleak. The thing that really makes the bad future for me is the fact that this is what every single X-Men film had been leading up to. Every single X-Men film led up to everyone dying. How fucked up is that? God damn! And it's really strange because, alright, if X-Men Days of Future Past was just only about the bad future, and it literally just ended with everyone dying, then that would suck. Yeah, but the fact that they're going back in time to change the bad future, that's what makes it acceptable. And Jesus Christ, the fact that everyone dies. Oh, Storm got freaking shanked from behind and thrown off a cliff. Bishop, they blew his ass up. Where have I seen that before? Sunspot, to my memory, he gets his arm ripped off and he gets shanked from behind again. Oh, shit, Colossus. Colossus got ripped in half. Think about that for a second. Colossus got ripped in half. God damn. Jesus Christ. Blink, she got shanked 3 times, and it wasn't like simultaneously. No, she got shanked. Ow.
Flawless victory. Fatality.
That's what the fuck happened. And Iceman, I know I didn't talk about this, but you know, due to the fact that this film, The Bad Future, Kitty Pryde has the ability to send people back in time. Bottom line, this is not the first time they died either. Iceman, it's like he got the worst death though. First time we see him is like in the beginning of the film. He gets so fucked up. The Sentinel's freaking holding him and it crushes his neck and his head falls off. Oh god, I didn't mean to make that sound as humorous as it did. But that's exactly what happened. The Sentinel freaking crushes his neck and his head falls off. The Sentinel crushes his head. See, I can laugh about it because the film doesn't end up like that. If it just stayed like that, like Iceman just stayed dead, I'd be sad. I'm like, you mean to tell me they brought the actor back just to die? That's fucked up, but I'm getting off track. That was the first death. The second death, oh god. It's really fucked up because Iceman and Kitty Pryde, like they showed them holding hands. I assume they're in a relationship in this film, but Iceman, oh god. He tried to barricade the door, but that's when the Sentinels broke in and he was screaming in agony. And Kitty Pryde fucking heard him scream in agony as he was dying. That was so fucked up. Oh yeah, and Magneto, he already got, you know, shanked by shrapnel. Ironic that it was metal too. And he was laying dying. And then, the Sentinels just walk slowly into the room where Professor X, Magneto, Kitty Pryde, and Wolverine are. Well, Wolverine, he's out of commission because his mind is back in the past, so he can't do shit. So everyone's fucked. Oh god, hey, Charles Xavier, he's like, oh, fuck me. Fuck me. And the Sentinels, they OD'd on Charles Xavier. Of course, we didn't see the aftermath of what they did, but they OD'd. Like, what, how many were around him? At the very least, there were like 4, I think. I think there were 4. Like, they shoot fire from their face. Oh yeah, speaking of which, I'm sorry, Warpath. I completely forgot about Warpath. Warpath, he got fucked up. Like, as I said, they shoot fire from their face, or fire beams, whatever. Sentinel freaking held Warpath and put his face. I was like, yo, that's fucked up. But bottom line, there were like 4 Sentinels, and they all just zoom on Professor X. I'm like, what the fuck? Dude can't do shit. Why you ODing though? Everyone dies. As I said, if this was just it, if this was the end of the X-Men film series, everyone dies, that would fucking suck. I'd be pissed. I would want my money back. But the fact is, it's not the only thing that happened. This captures the gravity of the situation very well. That is why I love The Bad Future. Now, seeing as how everyone dies, what is good to juxtapose that? The second thing that I love about X-Men Days of Future Past, the good future. Everyone lives. It's so nice to just see, you know, the Xavier's school, just, you know, just like everyone's just, you know, happy and shit. Wolverine, like, he came back, like, you know, from wherever the hell he was. He was like, where the hell am I? And everyone was alive. Storm was alive, even though Bishop, Sunspot, I don't know if Sunspot, but I'd like to think that everyone that died lived. You know what I mean? Hey, Rogue is back. Even though she didn't do shit, they cut out all her scenes. That's why I'm gonna get the Blu-ray, because I need to see all them deleted scenes. I love Rogue. Iceman's still alive. Kitty Pryde is there. Colossus is not ripped in half. He's still alive. That's good. Professor X, he's good. And Jean Grey and Scott are back. So, okay, like the good future. I love the good future. But I like how this also implies that, like, the X-Men films, they didn't happen the way that we think they did. I mean, X-Men The Last Stand, that's gone. Of course, X-Men First Class is still there. That's besides the point. X2, I don't think that happened because William Stryker's in the movie. At the end, like when Wolverine is getting, you know, taken out of the sea, and you see William Stryker looking at Wolverine, you're like, oh, okay, so this is gonna lead in him to getting the adamantium. But no, Mystique is disguised as William Stryker. Okay, so does that mean that Wolverine didn't get the adamantium claws? Did X2 never happen? Probably not. If it did happen, then it didn't happen exactly the way that we think it did. Because Jean Grey, remember, she sacrificed herself and she came back in X-Men The Last Stand. It's really, this film got me interested in knowing what happened. Who knows, maybe because Charles Xavier looked like young Charles Xavier, he looked into Wolverine's mind and he saw like the damage that Jean Grey was doing. So maybe when he saw Jean Grey as a kid, he took the necessary precautions to, you know, block the Phoenix inside her mind. So maybe she sacrificed herself in X2, but when she came back in X-Men The Last Stand, she wasn't the Phoenix because Charles Xavier, he worked early on to block the Phoenix. So who knows? Maybe everything worked out for the best. That's what the good future is. Good to see everyone still alive, but it also has that air of mystery. You know, what exactly happened and what exactly did not happen? I don't know, but I like when a movie can get me invested in a good way. A movie doesn't make me start nitpicking like, wait a second, this is not supposed, no. I like that. And it also helps with the time travel and set right what once went wrong aspect of the film. The only way that the X-Men can win against the Sentinels is if damn near everything that we know is erased. That could have been a bad thing. If this film sucked, then it could have been a bad thing. But the film doesn't suck. It just works. It worked so well, and I gotta give credit where credit is due. It made it work. That I love. Yeah, I love the good future of X-Men: Days of Future Past. And now for the final thing that I need to talk about: the characters. Specifically, two characters that I need to talk about. When a movie can make me invested in characters without there having too much action, especially seeing as how this is supposed to be a summer blockbuster, that is really good. That is really good. You have to give props where props is due. Yeah, I prefer to say where credit is due, but bottom line, the two characters that I really loved. Number one, Jennifer Lawrence as Raven Darkholme, aka Mystique. There are two versions of Mystique in this film. The main bad one, as well as the alternate one. What am I talking about? The main bad one. Let me explain. Mystique was the key to unlocking the Sentinels' true potential. They used her DNA to make the Sentinels adapt to whatever they needed to. And I remember I was talking about my X-Men First Class video, how I never understood how Mystique can go from being the person that she was in X-Men First Class to being the person that she is in the original trilogy. This film made me think about that. This film says that in order to get what they needed from Mystique, they captured her, tortured her, and experimented on her. Let me just explain why I think that worked very well. Let me just give you an example. I'm gonna be talking about, like, real quick, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. Spoilers if you haven't seen Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. So, in the flashback, the Joker kidnapped Tim Drake and tortured him to the point where he became insane and mentally dependent on the Joker. What if a variation of that happened in X-Men Days of Future Past? Well, in the part that we don't see. This is my theory of what happened to Mystique. Let me explain. This film does a good job of showing how conflicted Mystique is. Disregard the fact that the Sentinels were nowhere to be seen for the past 40 years. Let's say that they actually tortured and experimented on Mystique to the point where she steadily became mentally unhinged. Who knows? Is Mystique mentally unhinged in the original trilogy? I'd say to some extent, but here's the part where she becomes, you know, dependent on that person. Let's say that because Magneto is Magneto, he eventually gets wind of where Mystique is, and he goes to save her. This is where Mystique becomes dependent on Magneto. And because she's mentally unhinged, she starts to believe in what Magneto is saying, how they have to, you know, get rid of all humans, which would make sense to Mystique, I assume, because the humans had experimented and tortured her. Hey, who knows? That's my theory. Okay, so that's the main bad one. Let me talk about the alternate one. The alternate one happens as a result of Charles Xavier getting to her quicker. I assume because Charles Xavier was still in whatever bullshit problems he was dealing with, he naturally wasn't able to help Mystique before she got captured and experimented on. Due to the fact that Xavier is forced to, you know, take responsibility in this film, he's able to get to Mystique earlier and help her become an anti-hero now. And that is the alternate Mystique. I like that, because this is a Mystique that we have not seen. And because this is a Mystique that we have not seen, she changes the future. I like that. Mystique essentially is the one who saves the day and the world if I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, I like that. Deep down, she wasn't a bad person. She wasn't a bad person. She just, you know, Magneto got inside her head, which messed her up. Remember what I said about Mystique having layers? This film gives Mystique layers. I still don't give X-Men First Class props, but I give X-Men Days of Future Past props because this film actually expands upon the character of Mystique. Because these, like, there were two different characters. Two different characters. The Mystique from X-Men First Class and the Mystique from the original trilogy. The fact that they said that the scientists who made the Sentinels experimented and tortured Mystique, it helps bridge these two together if my theory is correct. And the alternate Mystique, I want to see where this Mystique goes. They said that there's gonna probably be a Mystique spinoff. I actually want to see that. If it focuses on the alternate version of Mystique, I want to see that. Mystique, I love Mystique in X-Men Days of Future Past. There's nothing more to say. And now, the biggest deciding point, the one thing that I love about X-Men Days of Future Past, I never thought I was ever going to say this. I never thought. Just look at my X-Men, I keep advertising this video. Seriously, look at this video and come back and see if you could ever hear me say this. But the fact is, I have to give credit where credit is due. The #1 character that I love and the #1 thing that I love about X-Men Days of Future Past is James McAvoy as Charles Xavier, aka Professor X. I never thought I was going to say that. I never did. I never did. Yeah, let me explain why. So when we first see young Charles Xavier, he's still the young and piece of shit Charles Xavier that he was. Well, not exactly, but he's still younger and a piece of shit Charles Xavier. He's an inferior Charles Xavier at this point. I still didn't like him. I didn't like him. I hated him. I hated him from X-Men First Class. And I was like, oh god, here we go. But then through sequence of events, he's forced to take responsibility for whatever he's doing. And I like how Magneto calls him out on the fact that, oh yeah, it's like Charles Xavier was talking to Magneto like, you abandoned me! You took her away, you abandoned me!
You abandoned me! You took her away and you abandoned me!
And Magneto pretty much calls him out on his hypocrisy. Our mutant brothers and sisters all dead. Where the fuck were you, Charles? Huh? You and Hank, you hide and pretended to be people you're not when your mutant people needed you the most? Where the fuck were you?
You abandoned us all.
Finally, someone calls Charles Xavier out on his bullshit. At least the young Charles Xavier. And then when they get back to the mansion, you know, when Charles Xavier starts losing his legs and he starts getting his telepathy back, he finally makes the choice in order to, you know, like find Mystique. He needs to make a choice. Like, does he really just want his legs back and then still be in sorrow, or does he actually want to help his adoptive sister? He makes the choice, he puts the serum down, he grabs his wheelchair, and he goes into Cerebro. And I'm still at this point thinking, yep, this is, okay. I still don't like this guy, but I like the fact that he's willing to put his legs aside for the greater good. He's still young and piece of shit to me, but I'm willing to give him props for that. And first time he uses Cerebro, that shit fucks up, and he starts giving up already, and I'm like, yep, he's back. And then Logan's like, the only person that can make you take responsibility is inside my mind. Look inside my mind. Trust me. Trust me. So young Charles Xavier does, and he talks to the old Charles Xavier, the Patrick Stewart Charles Xavier, which was really nice. Like old Charles Xavier, he pretty much says in the nicest way to his younger self, man the fuck up. Please. We need you to grow some balls. And finally, young Charles Xavier does grow some balls. Ironically, he can't use them because he's in a wheelchair. I'm sorry. Moving on, he uses Cerebro again. He finds Mystique in an airport, and I like how he's able to manipulate a bunch of people to talk to Mystique and try to, you know, convince her to not go through with this. I like that. At this point, this is when stupid younger Charles Xavier just became young Charles Xavier to me. But the real turning point was when young Charles Xavier realized that she was going to Washington, D.C. and Hank suggested that maybe the timeline was just irreversible. Maybe this is just who Mystique is, and this is like what is meant to happen. Maybe we're just all supposed to die. And young Charles Xavier, this was the turning point. I saw it. Young Charles Xavier, he quotes himself from the future. Of course, I don't remember the whole dialogue. I saw the film like once, but Like, he says something along the lines of, just because someone stumbles and loses their way doesn't mean they're completely lost. I'm sorry, but I don't believe that theory, Hank. And I cannot believe that's who she is. Ready the jet. We're going to Washington. Right there. Right there. When he said, ready the jet, we're going to Washington, I was like, I saw it. I saw it. What did I see? I saw the transition when young Charles Xavier became Professor X. I fucking saw it. I never thought I would see the day. And the greatest part is, he doesn't revert. He doesn't revert and go back to his whiny bitch yourself. He stays Professor X for the rest of the film. In First Class, he was never Professor X to me. This is an alternate Charles Xavier. But the sequence of events that lead into him becoming Professor X, yes! He successfully turned from stupid younger Charles Xavier to Professor X. The thing that I really like is, like, you know, in the good future when Logan goes to talk to Charles Xavier, you know, he has some sort of younger vibe to him. And this is the Patrick Stewart Charles Xavier. Maybe because he became Professor X at a younger age, maybe that's why he has a younger vibe to him, but he seems a lot more spry. I mean, like, if this was the regular Charles Xavier that we knew, it would probably be something like this. Like, Logan comes up to him and says, wow, you actually did it. And the regular Charles Xavier's like, did what? But in the alternate universe, because of the fact that Charles Xavier has a younger vibe to him, this is pretty much what happens. Wow, you actually did it. Did what? Logan, don't you have a class to teach? Class? Yes, you are the history teacher. And I really like that. I like that. No, I don't like that. I love that. So yeah, that's how I feel about X-Men Days of Future Past. Of course, there are still problems in the film, but out of 100%, I gave it an 81 out of 100. To some people, that might seem a little low, but no. It's a very enthusiastic 81 out of 100. I really enjoyed this film. Honestly, I would rank this second highest X-Men film, in my opinion. I know people say, oh, this is the best X-Men film. For me, no. X2 is still king. You're gonna have to do some extra shit to dethrone that motherfucker. But X-Men Days of Future Past is right there. X-Men Days of Future Past is actually my second favorite X-Men film. I have to admit, I am pretty hyped for X-Men Apocalypse. And Sabanor, that is all. That's all I had to say. So until next time, I'm the Methodical AAA. If you don't like me, frankly, I don't give a doo-doo because I liked X-Men Days of Future Past, motherfucker. Peace! Peace? See, I see, how the hell did I fuck that up? Peace.